Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoon, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from the year 2015, I'll be your host, Dave Trumbore. Joining me today from the future year of 2055, our time-traveling specialist, Sean Paul Ellis. How's it going, future man?
David, I'm doing well. How about yourself, buddy?
I'm doing good. Your language is surprisingly similar to ours here in 2015.
Surprise, English still reigns supreme.
Surprise, English.
Still reigns supreme.
Also joining us tonight, a very special guest and even more of a time travel expert because he's from the year 3999, Evan Valentine.
Thank you guys for having me. It's pretty great in the future, and just so I can reiterate, I am as far beyond mutants as they are beyond you. So just as long as we have that confirmed at the beginning of the episode, I think that'll be great.
Just establishing the hierarchy right off the bat.
That's the baseline that we're working with.
I like it.
Regarding Evan tonight. So thank you, Evan, for coming back, man.
Oh, thank you. No, it's great. Thanks for having me.
I fully expected Evan to be talking in a series of like digital bleeps and bloops, but apparently 3999 is quite similar to 2015 and 2055.
Oh, we all have metal arms though.
Oh,
just in case we haven't learned how to really make technology better, but we have learned how to put metal sheets on everything. Arms. So it's been working out. You know,
we're going to learn a lot about the future in this episode tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our very special 75th episode of Saturday Morning Cartoons.
We did it!
A round of applause.
We did it!
By the time we hit 3999, I can't do that math. I have no clue what episode we're going to be on. We're going to be out of cartoons by that point, I think. So
it'll probably be episode 100 at that point.
You think it'll just be episode 100?
Be like, oh man, we took a really long hiatus.
Just took a break for a little while until we got our metal arms on. So for this particular episode, in the past we've talked Thundercats for our very special episode. What was the other special episode that we did?
We did Gargoyles for 50.
Oh, Gargoyles, which was my super favorite that apparently I forgot all about. So for this one, we're going to do a cartoon that you guys definitely know and love. We are going back to the 90s, as is the vogue, to the X-Men animated series. If you don't know what that is, we're going to walk you through it, and Sean is going to give you the history of this particular show.
So, X-Men, also known as X-Men the Animated Series, is an American animated television series which debuted on October 31st, 1992 in the United States on Fox Network as a part of its Fox Kids Saturday morning lineup, which is where I remember watching the show. X-Men was Marvel Comics' second attempt at an animated TV series after the pilot, X-Men Pride of the X-Men, was not picked up. It ran for a total of 5 seasons, spanning 76 episodes, and all of them are thankfully on Hulu.
Yeah, which was great.
Fun. Yeah.
I'm currently in the middle of just like watching all of them, so I'm probably about halfway through now, and it is a lot of fun. Now, we watched 2 episodes in particular tonight. We're not going to get to them just yet because they were Evan's suggestions for tonight's episode, but good suggestions, man, especially if you guys have watched the previous movie, the last Bryan Singer movie that came out. Good primer for that. We'll touch on that and the cartoon version of it, and probably even the comic version of Days of Future Past a little bit. It'll actually warm you up for what we may or may not see. Man, I can't even imagine.
No, we will not see any of this in X-Men Apocalypse. There's no way we see any of it.
Oh man,
at all.
There will be X-Men in that movie. That's as far as I can. That's the only similarity between these two.
That's beside the point.
Now, Sean, you said you remember watching this on Fox growing up. What's your fondest memory of watching this show in the 90s?
My fondest memory, and indulge me for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
My fondest memory was I read a lot of X-Men comics in the 90s, and when it was actually before, it may have been around the time that this show premiered. I was reading a lot of Cable. For Halloween one year, I went as Cable. I think I may have been 11 years old.
We gotta dig those pictures
up.
Those
have to go.
Yeah, I
gotta get those pictures.
I messaged my mom this afternoon and asked her if she could find it, and she's been sending me every Halloween photo except that. There's a photo of me dressed as a Wuzzle. There's a photo dressed of me as Spider-Man. There's a large number of things that I dressed up as a child for Halloween.
Nice.
But I dressed up as Cable, and we get like a mattress foam pad that we spray painted silver, and we wrapped it around my arm, and then I wore like a black glove on top of it.
I need to see these pictures.
We put the because this instance, and Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, but Cable used to also have on the tattoo around his eye, it was like a starburst.
Yeah, that's because when Cable accesses his mutant powers of telepathy and telekinesis, his eye glows, like it just lights up for no reason. They never explain
just
it.
for fun.
Yeah,
for future fun.
Sean, are you familiar with the origin of Cable?
Not 100%. No.
Would you like me to give you like a minute long?
I was gonna say, yeah, we don't have like
on Cable.
We
Yeah, I could go
through.
2 hours. But in a nutshell, Cable is the son of Cyclops and Jean Grey's clone, Madeline Pryor, who is sent into the future to fight Apocalypse under the tutelage of the Ascani tribe, who will help him to utilize his telepathy and telekinesis. That is until Apocalypse injects him with a techno-organic virus that makes half of his body metal, which is why he has the metal arm, and makes his powers much less than they could be, which would be on like Phoenix levels.
All of this will be explained in X-Men Apocalypse.
Yes, sure.
No, none of that will be explained.
Oh my god, that is crazy. Thank you. I had no idea.
That's like, I would imagine that is the briefest possible.
That is the
version.
briefest possible explanation of who Cable is. It's never mentioned in the show, by the way.
No, they don't get into any of that.
I have to. That begs the question then, Evan. Did they also inject Cable's son, Tyler with the virus as well? Is that why he has a metal arm?
No, but Tyler eventually becomes the supervillain called Genesis, who tries to put the adamantium back into Wolverine, only for him to be killed by a much more feral Wolverine.
And then also, unfortunately, stars in the movie Terminator Genesis.
Yeah. Which is why it was a bomb.
Which is why it was terrible.
Yep. And Terminators were in this episode, so you know,
that's true. It all
yeah,
comes
Terminators
together.
were in this. Oh god.
You know, what's interesting right now, just because we mentioned Fox, there is possibly some live. Well, there's some live action X-Men related TV shows that are coming out too, but there's still some like weird legal. But there's some like weird legal stuff on like whether Fox TV has the rights to TV stuff or whether Marvel does. So we'll kind of clarify that in the future. I just wanted to make mention that there is live action X-Men related shows, Hellfire Club and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, Legacy.
Yeah, Legacy that are going to be coming out within the next year or so. So if you guys aren't, completely satisfied with the glut of superhero stuff that's on TV just now, just wait, there's more coming. So yeah, Evan, I would imagine that you may have read a couple comic books in your time.
I did,
but
I've read only a few.
Only a few. But as far as this cartoon goes, like, what's your memory from when I say X-Men the animated series? What comes to mind?
Well, I can remember like watching it when I would come back from soccer games on Saturday mornings. I mean, the major things I can remember is stuff like the Phoenix Saga. And I can remember when they would have like, Fox would sometimes put their cartoons on to primetime. They would have primetime. I remember they had an episode wherein Wolverine fights Lady Deathstrike in the sewers. And they fight a big neon alien thing.
Yep.
That's Soul. It's like the Soul Taker. That's its name. And it's sucking all the souls out of the people. And so that was one of the main things I remembered. Now, as an adult, it's like the X-Men exists as this crazy, like, meme factory of stuff like, Wolverine is covered in scorpions. Mr. Sinister has a group of flunkies called, quote-unquote, the Nasty Boys, of which is named Hairbag.
Yep. This is all real stuff that's on the cartoon, too. It's not just craziness in the comic book. It's full on in the cartoon.
And of course, like, the Juggernaut bitch that was spawned from which then made it into X-Men 3.
Exactly. No, I'm so glad you brought up that primetime special, because I can remember watching that on Fox, like, at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, watching X-Men and just having my mind completely blown because I was just like, there's cartoons on at night. And now you can just watch them 24
Have these
hours
always been going on and I just didn't know about them?
I've never tuned to this channel at this time before. That was great. The episode made zero sense, but it was a lot of fun. If nothing that we've said so far makes any sense to you listeners out there, I'm going to catch you up really briefly with just kind of the synopsis of this. So obviously the animated series is based on the Marvel created superhero team that's been in the comics since what, the 60s?
Yeah, just about 1960.
1963. So this show features X-Men that are similar in the look and the lineup to the early 90s X-Men that were actually in the comics drawn by Jim Lee. So we've got the Cyclops Blue team that were in X-Men Legacy. We've got Cyclops, Wolverine, Rogue, Storm, Beast, Gambit, Jubilee for whatever reason, Jean Grey, Professor X, and briefly, who occasionally will pop up out of nowhere, Morph. Now, those are the heroes. We've also got a lot of villains. Specifically tonight, we're going to be talking about perhaps the team's biggest villain. Evan, do you want to give us a teaser of who that could possibly be?
Let's talk about Apocalypse. The man, the myth, the legend. Apocalypse was the first mutant ever recorded. Actually, ironically enough, the first mutant that appeared in comic books was actually Namor, the Submariner, who was the first Marvel character ever to appear. But Apocalypse was an ancient Egyptian pharaoh who has the ability to do any and everything that the story requires for him to do. He's the most melodramatic villain in the history of mankind. He wears a belt with a giant A on it, so you always remember that you're fighting Apocalypse.
He's very fashionable.
Yes, he is very fashionable. Whether it is in like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics or whether it is in futuristic purple and blue armor. He's always got that metal.
Do you think that it would change? Like he puts like a scarab, like he had a big scarab that meant Apocalypse when he first appeared?
Maybe.
And
then it wasn't working out. It didn't test well, so he ended up going with the A instead.
What's your name again? Scarab? No!
Scarab, man? No.
Apocalypse!
En Sabanur! Yeah, you're gonna have to change that. If you want your SAG card, you're gonna need a snap of your name. So we are gonna get into some Apocalypse episodes tonight, but before we get into the episodes, we always like to pause and take a moment to talk about the theme song.
Get this theme song
Sean,
going.
buddy, what are your thoughts on this theme song?
I loved it. It's the second the guitar, the came on, it brought me back to 1992, watching it in a beanbag chair in my room, laying against the bunk beds that I had at the time on the small little like 13-inch TV in my room, just loving every moment of it, eating cereal. I don't know what it was. It just, that theme song really took me back, and I got very excited. And it does an excellent job of telling you who the heroes are, because everybody gets a name. They do a roll call.
Yeah.
Everybody gets like a title card.
Yeah, it's almost like going through like a Marvel credit sequence from a movie, like a Marvel movie credits, where everybody gets a scene and they get to do something cool. Like, I remember Psyche doing his like optic blasts, and Wolverine busts out of the jungle for whatever reason, and everybody gets their own thing, like you said, with their name. But so if you haven't been following the comic book, you still know who these people are.
Right. And they have this fun kind of moment where you see the villains are running, and it pans over and you see people screaming and running away, and so you see that there might be some bigotry towards just general brawling in the street, and then you see the heroes kind of running and clashing as well. The one thing that was very noticeable is that there's a lot of radiating waves coming from body parts.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire.
That's a pretty common motif.
There's a lot of Professor Xavier touching his head, and then his whole body just radiates. And was Magneto holding his finger up, and just a radio like waves radiating from his finger at the same time. There was, and I will say, summary. I love the theme song. It does a great job at setting everything up. There was one moment in the theme song that I remember watching as a child, and when it happened, I laughed out loud, and I don't really know why, but it's towards the very end of it where Beast jumps up onto like a car, and then they shine like two spotlights on like the side of him, and he does like a look back, like a as if he's surprised,
like he's caught like a film noir movie or something.
Right. I don't know why that one moment always struck me as being kind of crazy, but I was glad when I saw it. I laughed and I smiled profusely. So
I think one of my favorite scenes from that is Cyclops intro scene, because for whatever reason I never understood why Cyclops needed to be like completely jacked up all the time. So I was like, you're not going to get anywhere near him. Why does he could just be this fat ass.
He never throws a punch.
Wait, what?
It's not like you ever really see him throw a punch.
He's supposed to be like a master, hand-to-hand combatant, but fuck, why? Like, why even bother? You just sit in a chair all day, just blast people around. But he's like,
guys, I'm a master at shooting my eye lasers and ripping you apart.
Yeah, from 50 feet away. But I love every time they show the intro, because he's just like, like he's in his jacked up power pose and just like just blasting everybody around. But it looks like he's like really trying to pass like a hard stool or something. Like there's no reason for him to be that way.
But Dave, could you imagine if they had like a 400-pound overweight Cyclops?
I'd love it.
In a rascal?
He's just blasting lasers and trying to Hulk out at the same time.
Wolverine, stay away from Jane.
Get away from my Jane. I've always wanted to see a golden age, and I mean like retirement sense of X-Men. I've always wanted to see a bald Wolverine with rusted claws.
He's already 135
I know, but I want to see him like 300 years. I want to see him with rusted claws. I want to see Cyclops with cataracts, so every time he does an optic blast, it just goes in fucking crazy directions. I want to see old X-Men. Old X-Men. Somebody
I'd
make
be into
that.
that. I'd be into it. I would watch. I would check that out.
Back on track. Evan, how did this theme song kind of affect you?
Well, it's arguably the greatest cartoon theme song of all time.
That's bold words.
It's you even to this day, I'm pretty sure that 75% of the population has this as their ringtone, and no one looked that up. I'm just gonna say that's
a hard fact.
I think that's a hard fact. I
fact.
think everybody knows someone who has the X-Men theme song as their ringtone.
It is really good though, and it's instantly recognizable. It's another one that came from Haim Saban. We've talked about this guy 50 times. You think I know how to pronounce his name by now, but it's another one from like Saban and Levy that they've just put together like the soundtrack to the 90s cartoon. So basically the soundtrack to our childhood.
Oh, and I would also recommend everyone watch the Japanese intro to the show.
Oh, interesting.
Called "Cry for the Moon." That's literally it's completely ridiculous. It has characters that never appear in the show at all.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's really worth watching. Once you finish this podcast,
are there tiny chibi sentinels just running around dancing?
That's
what I
picture. They come pretty close. It just has a lot of characters. Like Cable is actually front and center in it, and Cable like only appears for 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah,
in
total
the history of every show and everything. But yeah, no, it's funny. Give it a watch.
I will say one thing here. One of my favorite characters from the comics was actually Iceman, and I was always a big fan of Iceman growing up. I was perennially disappointed that I don't think Iceman like ever shows up.
He's in one episode.
Is he in one episode?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where they encounter X Factor, which is the government made.
Was that with Strong Guy? Was Strong Guy in that episode?
Strong Guy and Wolfsbane and Havoc and Polaris.
They're running out of not only characters but words to describe them at this point. Strong Guy.
Strong Guy.
Yeah.
Guido. His real name's Guido.
Guido, the Strong Guy.
Guido, the Strong Guy.
You guys heard about the newest character, just Action Verb? Action Verb is
Action Verb's got it.
Action Verb's fucking
He can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
Action Verb.
Soon to be played by Robert De Niro.
Yeah. Action Verb.
Action Verb.
Straight out of Schoolhouse Rock.
Oh, Onomatopoeia Man. Yeah, great.
Onomatopoeia is an actual villain.
Oh, he is.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
He's an Arrow villain.
Fuck.
Has he shown up?
No, they were originally going to have an episode about him, but
they were like, this is even too stupid
really
for us.
Stupid. No one can say onomatopoeia.
Man, nobody can spell it. That's sure. All right, so you've got the theme song now. If you haven't heard it or can't quite remember, just check it out. We can put a link up to that too. It'll definitely bring you back. Whether or not it's on Sean's beanbag in his room, I don't know, but it'll bring you back to whenever you watched X-Men as a kid. Now it's time to get on to our episodes tonight. So since Evan brought these to our attention, I'm going to turn it over to him. He's going to walk us through just a brief synopsis of the episodes that we watched, along with their titles too, so you know what we're watching.
So the episodes that we watched are called Time Fugitives, Part 1 and 2, and the episode begins with Bishop returns from the future to again attempt to fix the world, but this time his actions lead up to a far greater tragedy occurring. To stabilize his own timeline, Cable comes to the present to prevent Bishop from saving mutant kind from Apocalypse's plague.
So I think it's probably a good idea before we even get into these episodes, maybe to go back to like Days of Future Past episodes, just briefly touch on them, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is when Bishop returns.
That's when Bishop shows up for the first time.
And he introduces himself by way of probably a lot of fist fights and laser blasts.
And shooting his gun, which is a laser that lasers do various things in the X-Men universe.
In the future.
Some stun, some work like a shotgun where it like encompasses an object and then it blows up, and others like blow holes in people It's no one can tell.
No.
I mean, as long as we don't see bullets, the kids are fine. Right, guys?
You can shoot limbs off of people.
You can shoot limbs off of lasers, but if bullets enter the equation,
I mean, we know at least from some of the dialogue in this episode that this is not the first time that he's shown up from Wolverine's very gruff, "What's that time junkie doing here again?"
I love the nicknames that they give these people, like Time Junkie. Time Junkie?
Time Junkie? Oh boy.
Oh, dude.
That's such a a 90s thing to do too. Like,
and the fact that we had to watch them do it twice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, everything happened twice.
So yeah, this part 1 and part 2 is essentially the same episode, but since we have different time travelers coming back through time, either from 2055 to the present day of 1995, whatever it was,
something like that,
right?
Or 3999 AD, right before the big party at the end of the year. He comes back at the same time.
They got to worry about that 4K.
Yeah.
Why 4K
Why
virus?
4K?
It's
a killer. It actually pretty much is in this universe. Why 4K? It's coming.
Oh God.
So we've got parts 1 and part 2, and they kind of overlap, and then they almost ideologically run on top of each other, and then they almost ideologically pull from the Days of Future Past episodes, where Bishop travels back in time, tries to prevent something from happening.
Senator Kelly from being assassinated.
Exactly. So that is the event that kind of alters the future, leads to, is it the Sentinel program?
Essentially leads to Sentinels overtaking and running America, mutants being sent to concentration camps.
Or just outright murdered.
And really shitty time for everyone involved.
Yeah. So there's is it Claremont, Chris Claremont? Is that the comic line?
Yeah,
so there's comic storyline, the movie that just came out, I think last year, and then this series. So that's the past. Go ahead, Sean. What did you have?
Right. No, the thing that was surprising is I didn't anticipate them reusing so much animation. I want to say that Fox Animation Studio probably saw this and thought, "Can you guys do more time travel episodes?"
Can you make everything
this was dirt cheap for us to make.
Because literally part 2 is like 15% maybe new footage.
They really did have another time travel episode that was exactly like this.
Oh, was it?
From when
Wolverine
and Storm from the Age of Apocalypse come back, and then they go back to the 50s.
Oh, I do remember
where
that
Professor X is there, and
because they were like the only ones surviving in that future.
Yeah, they were the only ones who were.
Wasn't Storm,
wait, Evan, they go back to like what time?
They go back to like the 50s, because I remember there's a time when some of the so Wolverine and Storm walk into a diner in the 50s, and one of the people in the diner walks up to him and goes, "We don't take kindly to you people being here." And Wolverine's like, "You people?" And Storm goes, "Oh, how childish. They're racist against the color of my skin." You know, like...
Oh my God.
But at least it wasn't anti-mutant.
At least it wasn't
anti-mutant. It was just good old-fashioned American racism.
Good old-fashioned Southern racism.
Were they in the South? Well, I don't know.
They are now.
Okay, so we've got Days of Future Past, all right? Bishop went back in time, fucked a bunch of stuff up, but apparently achieved whatever he wanted to achieve. So the future is fine, the present is fine. So you'd think he'd wrap up all your time traveling. Nope. Turns out that by Bishop traveling back from his future, he actually cocked up the distant future. So now a distant future time traveler by the name of Cable wants to know what the hell happened in the past to mess up his future. So we've got kind of 3 different timelines that we're dealing with here. So it's going to get a little hairy, possibly, but we're going to try to take you through it as best.
Well, the thing that was curious is that if you're in the distant future,
right?
Well, we can say present, distant future, or present, future, distant future to maybe sort some of these problems out. So distant future, if the future's being changed, does the distant future always have just random tornadoes that show up to indicate that the time stream is being fucked with?
Not tornadoes, time-nados.
Temporal
storm.
A
temporal storm?
Oh, no.
Where it constantly looks like Bishop is just doing somersaults in midair.
I like that Apocalypse instantly knows what it is. Like, this isn't a regular storm.
Temporal storm. Like he's the weatherman.
Yeah, oh man.
He's just the weatherman of 3999 AD.
I mean, but luckily, Cable has what I like to call the exposition cube.
Yes.
That he pops out of his arm that answers any and all questions that he may have. That no one could possibly know. How could the cube know about Bishop going back?
The cube is all powerful. It's essentially this little computer sugar cube that drops into like a glove.
It's like a time DVR.
It's a time DVR. It's kept track of the last 2,500 years of human history.
Just time TiVo right on your wrist.
And all Cable has to do is like ask, hey, what happened at this specific second on this specific date? And she's like, oh, let me just cue that shit up for you.
I have video of it.
Yeah,
video that no one could possibly have.
I've got video from the artist's perspective.
And he's running from gunfire, just looking at this cube for a lot of this episode, just watching it.
So we open on the show after the previously on X-Men, which is done in Cyclops' voice, which always bothers me. But
which also for this episode for the part 1 was about 2 minutes in length.
Yep. It was like just a shortened version of the entire previous 2-part episode of time travel. But in this one, we open up in 3999 AD with Cable running around. Cable's got, I don't know, do you know the other people that were on his team?
The name of Cable's team that he works with.
Oh my God.
Are you guys ready? Okay, everyone get ready. Strap yourselves in.
I don't know this.
It's Cable and the Six-Pack. Including
shut it down.
Including Grizzly,
I know Grizzly.
G.W. Briggs, and Garrison Kane, aka Weapon X.
Oh, that's Weapon X?
You can remember that Weapon X
G.W. Griggs?
Weapon X.
They ran out of names by 4000 AD.
If you want to know who Weapon X was in this show, he was the guy with metal arms who goes, follow Cable! Whoa! When he got sucked into
the guy in the tank thing?
No,
was there a guy in a tank thing? Or
he was in a different episode.
Oh, those are more.
Was that G.W. Griggs?
G.W. Griggs. And then there was
sounds like an apartment store.
It does. It's like a 5 and dime.
That's what they named it after.
J.W. Briggs.
Oh my God.
So Cable and his team, apparently the Six-Pack, are fighting the forces of Apocalypse, which
shit's fucked.
We need to talk about the forces of Apocalypse, because it's just Apocalypse and then a bunch of robots that look equally
almost identical to
but they look like Terminators and or Iron Man.
One of them looks exactly like War Machine.
Yeah.
From the Iron Man series, which is hilarious.
Yeah. And this is happening in a ruined New York City. So New York City's still standing, but there's nobody else there except Cable, the Six-Pack, and Apocalypse's Terminator Iron Man machine.
And Tyler.
But Tyler's like back at home watching Netflix or whatever. Just hanging out until he gets wiped out.
I just want to keep, just every time we talk about this, just the random, just like, what is it, Tyler?
He's like, what's happening?
It reminds me of like Rick and Carl from The Walking Dead. Carl! It's like every time. Tyler.
Computer, body slide by 1 to Bishop's time. Gotta save Tyler.
Is body slide? Is that what he does?
Body slide by 1.
Yeah, body slide.
Yeah. Computer, body slide by 1.
Which apparently works in any situation.
Yeah,
it just means body slide by 1 to intercept Bishop.
Cable makes shit up. The computer knows what he's talking about. He's drunk
so much body sliding in these 2 episodes.
There's a lot of body sliding. He never moves.
No.
Cable doesn't move on his own. He just body slides. It's the sexy dance move of $39.99. So basically, at this point, there's, like Sean said, a time twister that descends upon New York City, and everybody freaks out. Even Apocalypse is just standing there, and he's just like, a temporal storm! And basically what happens is Cable learns through his computer, through watching the storm, and through watching Bishop weirdly fall through the middle of this twister, like, help me out here.
Temporal storm.
Time-nado.
Time-nado. No, I was going for Wizard of Oz, but the name just completely escaped me. Like Dorothy. So Bishop is Dorothy in this scenario. So he now has this framing device where he's asking his computer, hey, what happened in the past that changed that affected my current time so that all this shit's fucked up, this tornado just ate all my friends, and I'm the only one to survive, even my little goofy metal-armed kid got sucked up. So,
Tyler.
So that's where we're at. Cut to, now we're still in the future, just not the far-flung future, because we cut to 2055 now, where Bishop, who has just returned to his own timeline from traveling back into the past on a previous episode, is now back in 2055. He kind of walks in, dusts off his hands, like, hey, what's going on, man? Everything's great, right? So he walks in and talks to Forge. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to be very clear about something. what was with the constant harmonica sound that came on every time it cut to a shot?
Bishop enters the screen.
Oh man, I can't explain it. I have no idea. There's no reason for it.
He's like a jazz man or something.
He's like not from the South.
He's not from New Orleans.
Louisiana.
He's not a blues musician. As far as I know.
What is Bishop's nationality?
In the movies, the guy that plays him is French. That's what.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, really, like at that point in the future, nations didn't exist. So there's nothing. Like he was in America, but he was in a concentration camp. He had M branded onto his left eye to qualify that he was mutant. But otherwise, outside of that,
just angry harmonica man.
Yeah.
I think it was just I'd never really picked up on it. I guess because I thought it was just kind of like, oh, harmonica times. We're going to talk about Bishop. I don't know. I never picked up on it. I like that you did.
Every time that it came on, I just kind of flung my hands up in the air. I should say, this fucking show, but it was so dumb, but I loved it so much. Every single time they cut to anything that's Bishop related, it's like.
I think it was because they were just kind of like, Bishop seems like he'd be like a cool bluesy kind of guy. So let's just give him like a cool.
He's got like a neckerchief.
Yeah, he seems like he'd be into the blues and the future blues. I hope this comes to pass. I hope 2055 is like a great year for blues harmonica.
Everybody has their own Wolverine skeleton that's just in the living room that they look at.
Can we please talk about this?
Yeah, let's get into Forge.
Okay, so Bishop walks into his whatever it. In the previous episodes, it was like the rebels.
Yeah, it's like the rebels against.
Yeah,
it's still there apparently.
Still there, still
like not
rebelling.
much has changed really.
No,
like Forge is still in the same place. He doesn't
literally the same position.
The exact same position. He's still wearing
Fox
an
Animation Studios was like, this is so cheap for us to make.
This is great.
Keep the cells.
Forcing money.
Yeah, right.
Continue to have his head and his body face towards the skeleton of Wolverine. We're not gonna cut to his face we're just gonna do voiceover the entire time, ADR. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it, guys. We've seen what Beak Entertainment does, and it's not good. So we're gonna fix it.
Yeah, right.
It's actually pretty smart on their part, and it works really well. It's just there's weird stuff that shows up. So Bishop shows up back at the headquarters. Previously, they prevented the assassination of Senator Kelly. Almost got it. He actually became president, but then what happens is there is this plague that starts affecting millions of humans and mutants. And what happens is once the plague actually infects a mutant, it itself mutates and becomes even more deadly. So people start to blame mutants for this new plague, which is basically just a recycled old plague that's now killing everybody. And it may or may not form, if you get infected by it, it may or may not develop gold circuitry on your face, which is the first sign of this plague infection. We'll get into that in a second. So, what you got?
No, it just like the circuitry, like
I don't get it.
It blew my mind. It was like weird body hieroglyphics would suddenly show up like circuitry on a motherboard, and you sit there just kind of shrugging your shoulders and thinking to yourself, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It almost looked like in another episode, like Mojo shows up.
Oh yeah,
he's
yeah.
kind of like this
extra
future thing, but he's got like the weird circuitry built in.
His skin is pulled back.
Like his jaundiced body with like the green circuitry like around where his legs.
See, that's how Cyclops should look. Let's be honest.
No, that's just get real obese. Take Mojo's spider
chair
things with the scorpion tail. Also, at one point in the episode, Bishop takes a newspaper, throws a coin to the newspaper guy, and it says Cube on the back, and it has circuitry on it.
Yeah.
Like in the future, you use coins that have circuit on the back, so they can verify that it's an actual 25 cents.
Still coins.
Well, Evan, little known fact, physical bitcoins.
Yeah,
oh, physical Bitcoin. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Physical Bitcoin.
Which makes so much sense to carry these heavy ass pieces of metal around. I wish I had the line, because the guy's like, what is this, some kind of future money? Like, yeah, how did you guess it was future money?
Real money from it.
Yeah, right?
Gotta save X-Men. They gotta be told the
truth.
X-Men
need to know, after he just like punches this guy's kiosk into obliteration. So, okay, back to Forge's headquarters. Forge, how would you describe Forge?
Well, I know about Forge from the comics.
What's his
Forge is a Native American X-Man.
Thank you for saying
who was in a relationship with Storm. His mutant ability is literally to create anything using technology.
Which is pretty cool.
He has like a fake arm, fake leg that he built himself. He wasn't from the future, so it's weird that they put him into the role and everything like that.
And he seems to be somewhat of not old gentleman, but an older gentleman.
He's an older chap.
He's like a middle-aged guy
mm-hmm.
who, for whatever reason, has two floating display cases in front of him. One which contains a brain. I don't know.
No idea.
Brain.
And one which contains a full adamantium skeleton of presumably Wolverine. No matter what they do in the past to like change the future, that skeleton stays there. So it's a keepsake.
Forge also
for the kids.
Forge also does not know who the X-Men are, thanks to the changes in the past, but is still coincidentally wearing an X-Men costume that has X's all over it.
It's just the future. It's like kids today wearing bell bottoms or something like that. They might not know what hippies were, but they might still be wearing bell bottoms. Or they might be wearing Jenko jeans. I don't know.
I took this clothing off of a dead mutant as I was burying him. Look, there's not a lot of clothes.
It's real good.
You in the future, you try to find a tailor. All right, honestly,
especially
I'm
for
working
like
with
the
my guy.
Keeps killing tailors.
Yeah, it's specifically going after tailors of lycra spandex for some reason.
This plague keeps killing tailors. It's the weirdest.
So we've got this point. Bishop basically shows up, asks Forge what's going on. Forge just more or less gives him the current state of the world because he doesn't know that things have changed. So he's like, oh, don't you know about the plague? Maybe you should go back and pick time again. So Bishop's, fuck, not again. Harmonica plays. And now we go back to our current day of 1995. So it's weird that we currently, as we're talking about this, are in between these two time zones. Very strange. So now he shows up in New York City, roughly 1995. Where his newfangled money comes into play, and he, knocks over a newspaper stand and just runs through a crowd. Meanwhile, we finally get to the X-Men. You guys remember what these superheroes, these incredibly powerful, elevated humans are doing at the outset of this?
I sure do.
All right, what
do.
are they doing? What very important thing are they doing?
They're in a mall.
Yeah.
And Jubilee is standing there holding her CD player, saying that she needs to take it in to get it fixed again. And Storm, as the adult in the situation, calms her by saying, one day you will be able to understand and grasp your powers and control.
Basically, she's just saying, like, one day we will have all our music on a tiny little device rather than this honking disc player you got with.
And then looks at Jubilee and says, I shall wait for you in the bookstore.
So we were talking about this offline. If anybody's familiar with Venture Brothers, Storm talks like Dr. Orpheus.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Everything is so like
so perfect,
just hyper dramatic, and you might as well have like this intense like organ music playing behind her every single time. She's second only to Apocalypse. Storm has the most ridiculous delivery in this entire series. So we're in the mall, right?
Right.
Probably a fairly safe place. Not a whole lot of crazy shit gonna go down. Definitely not gonna be a weird dude creeping around with a sweet video watch that has a database of mutants that are wanted by the government.
Not a video watch. It's an iWatch.
They
knew.
20
back
years.
then,
20 years.
They knew that the iWatch would. And luckily, he has pictures of the X-Men. One of which is Wolverine with blonde hair for some reason. Don't exactly.
I think it was just the display.
The display was freaking out, but luckily, within like 5 tries, he instantly finds Jubilee's picture.
Yeah.
There's like 1.5 million mutants.
Yeah, but he had a pretty good app.
Yeah, he had a good app.
He swiped right. He swiped right for Jubilee.
X-Men Tinder.
X-Men Tinder.
Tinder X.
And then
Tinder X.
Proceed. There should actually be a Tinder X app for only mutants. Mutant lovers. Oh boy, X-Men After Dark. At this point, if you think that that's not weird enough, he also has a plague gun, which is essentially just, I don't know, it was like a weird cross between like an aerosol gas gun system and a paintball gun looking thing. And yeah.
Well, it's very weird because in this, it looks sort of like a paintball gun.
Yeah.
But later in the episode, it looks like a thermometer, like it looks like an ear thermometer.
Yeah, exactly. One of those
like
little thermal
cord,
sensors
it looks
that
like,
you just,
that you put in your ear. So it was very weird. I want to say the curious thing about when he uses this plague gun on the gentleman who's repairing Jubilee's CD player is that in order to shield himself from a biological weapon that he is spraying into a room, he puts a handkerchief over his face.
Problem solved. I don't see what's the...
It worked in the 1900s.
Opens the door, handkerchief on face, shoots a virus, an airborne virus.
Circuitry virus.
And then just closes the door and leaves.
Nonchalant.
And that was it.
All good.
Sorry, kid, can't fix your CD player.
As he's just hacking, and his face is turning into a motherboard. It's the weirdest scene. And then, so this guy doesn't go very far. So if you're wondering why he sprayed this random dude that works at a mall with the plague gun, it is because he knows Jubilee is a mutant. He is trying to set her up as a carrier of this plague virus that's going around. So he has infected this poor innocent guy and then made Jubilee into a scapegoat. So all the people who, for whatever reason, are now congregating in the electronics repair store of the mall are all anti-mutant. They're all mutant haters.
Luckily enough. And just a little backstory on that guy. That's Graydon Creed.
Right.
He's the leader of the Friends of Humanity. Graydon Creed is
familiar.
A regular human who is the son of Victor Creed, a.k.a. Sabretooth, and Raven Darkholm, a.k.a. Mystique.
So this guy has some severe Voldemort level parent hating / mutant hating issues in his past, which is why he goes around spraying people in the face with a plague paintball gun and then blaming Jubilee fireworks fingers for carrying this plague around.
So it gets to this moment where he makes the accusation in the store. People start screaming, "She's a mutant, get her!" And Storm
as if her
is
bright Technicolor yellow ass trench coat wasn't enough to just be like, that's probably an X-Man.
She bumps into a television display, and her powers activate, and she sort of sends her worthless fireworks that shoot for
I love the
seconds.
sound though. I love the sound effects in all of these. So either the harmonica, the fireworks shooting, the Cyclops optic blast.
They all have
all
their
the
own sounds.
They're good.
And then Storm is alerted in the Barnes and Noble that she's in, or the Walden Books.
It was
from
the
Walden
Books at
Books,
the time.
Books a Million.
Yeah.
Sure, one of
Books a Million. She perks up and she has the first of
you got
many wonderful lines.
I think we've all got it, but okay, Don, you're on it.
It just goes, "Rain quench their thirst for violence."
Oh yeah, no, I also have rain quench their thirst.
Oh, I must have written a different one down.
Oh yeah, no, that's the later one.
Here.
That's later.
You have that one.
The one in the electronic store is "Bring forth the mist to blind their hatred."
Yeah. That's the one.
It's always Storm freaks out, and then it's Element do something to prevent something else. That's her shtick.
But I would imagine that whenever she says this, the weather is just you just have to say it. Or say nothing.
Just say nothing at all. Do your little contract. We got it.
We know what you want.
You're the weather witch. We got it. She's literally referred to as a weather witch and a Sauron.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
so you were right. So it is
a beast line for this. But go ahead.
Cool. You want to hit us?
Well,
I was gonna say
for whatever reason, I don't know what happened.
Oh, you don't have the beast quote?
I have the quote. I don't know why I have it immediately following Storm's quote because I feel like something had happened in between there. Does Storm just spirit Jubilee out of the mall?
They escape
under
the
cover of mist, mall
that
mist.
blinded their.
She shoots the window and then they fly right out. So she shatters glass that presumably falls into a food court on an orange Julius. And she flies right
Julius
the fuck
has
out.
all this glass in it, and I don't understand why. I would like a refund.
That's a mall baby chili fries.
Questions for another day. So
okay.
So the next thing I have is Beast checking in the hospital to check on the guy that was exposed to the plague. Do you guys have anything else in between there?
He checks out Jubilee and just says she needs to eat more vegetables.
That's right. Oh yeah.
Otherwise, she's fine.
Right. Because at this point, she's concerned. She doesn't know. She thinks she's maybe carrying the plague. She doesn't know that this guy set her up to be a scapegoat. So yeah, she gets checked out by Dr. Hank McCoy, friendliest doctor in these parts. So when he finds that she's fine, she just has a vegetable deficiency, I guess. He decides to go to the hospital, straight up break into this place, and then check out the victim from the mall. And at this point, I think he sees the craziness kind of happening at the mall. This guy who's kind of firing up controversy, and he's firing up the audience and the crowd to get them really pissed at the mutants. And Beast has this line where he says, "Only scientific inquiry can overcome the hysteria that's gripping the country." my beast. That's my hang.
Oh my god.
Beast just randomly drops these Kelsey Grammer level.
Which is ironic.
It is ironic. He was perfect,
him
but he was perfect
Right.
for that because it's just like these Frasier level quotes that are just like for no reason and for no one. There's no one there to listen.
There's no one there.
But they're great.
In case any time cubes are recording this scenario
for
right
posterity,
now.
exactly. Because he needs to quote like Proust or whatever. But, all right, so we got that. Where do we end up?
So we have the television where where Bishop's outside of this building where they're quarantining people. They're quarantining mutants in that building, correct?
Yeah, and who do they see outside that's riling people up? Somebody that looks pretty familiar.
Yeah.
Same fucking guy with a plague gun. Being an ass. I love. Okay, we need to take a moment to. There were 2 mutants inside the building. Do you guys remember who they were? Evan, were they actually anyone? Or
No,
were they just
they're no one.
ass?
They're like fodder. They're mutant fodder.
It
Well,
was
the best part about how they're barricading this fodder in is they're putting a sign that says quarantine and then they're stapling it to the door.
Yeah, it's like
and that's fucking it.
shape.
That
We
keeps
got
them
it.
in there.
I just imagine that the hairy guy is just a hairy guy, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on over here? Dirty mutant? No, wait, I'm just real hairy. I forgot to shave today."
It's just our special guest from a couple weeks ago, Matt Reuter. It's just a hairy dude. A hairy dude with glasses. Like he's not hurting anybody.
Not
and then
to be
a lady
confused
with wings.
Not to be confused with hairbag.
Not
from the
hairbag.
Nasty
Not
Boys.
hairbag. He was a nasty boy. So this is where
Storm
this
comes,
is
or where
Storm
the
says her quote.
right.
And also
right.
where now our timelines have kind of crossed at this point. So Bishop is on his way to this same location to try to just squash everything, make sure everything's like kind of calmed down, but he does it in the weirdest possible way. Yeah. Harmonica playing in the background. So the X-Men show up, Bishop shows up, the X-Men recognize Bishop, all hell kind of breaks loose, and they all kind of start fighting. The humans are kind of caught up in this crossfire, and they try to sort everything out. So the weirdest part of this whole thing is that it eventually ends up, well, I don't think we get there yet, but we learn about this other entity called the Friends of Humanity.
Right.
Which are basically just a bunch of, I want to say racist, but they're
they're like
racist.
Nazis.
They're basically Nazis or the Klan or whatever you want to call them. They're just anti-mutant.
They've got a really nice PowerPoint presentation in the background that outlines their plans.
Yeah, their membership requirements and their
mutant targets.
Yeah,
these guys.
Look
at them
in the basement of like some bar somewhere. But so at this point now we've got Bishop has shown up. Everybody's kind of tussling with him. He's screwing the whole thing up. But he's also trying to explain stuff as it's going on, and we've got the Friends of Humanity stirring up trouble too. However, the Friends of Humanity aren't exactly what they seem. So there's the Creed guy that we mentioned earlier, but then there's sort of a lackey that's kind of like bootleg. He's doing everything, doing errands for him, and he's running around and stirring up all this trouble. We see this brief moment where his eyes kind of glow purple, and he throws his head back and cackles like a crazy person.
Yeah.
What do you think that's about?
Ooh, this is the time that we're gonna introduce our big bad.
Welcome to Apocalypse in disguise as a crazy guy, because he's basically like a plague that will wipe out mutants and humans, and then he just cackles. It's pretty great. But for just the casual watcher, you don't really know what's going on right now, so there's that.
We jump to a courtroom scene.
This is what I was gonna say. It's like just this awkward transition where they just go to a court.
Where the X-Men are representing themselves in full costume as opposed to
total costume,
suits or any kind of regular clothing. Maybe to not rile up the crazy humans who hate mutants.
Beast didn't even shave.
He didn't
wearing
a Speedo.
Just all blue fur.
So we have Creed, who is making this passionate speech about what we should do.
He's basically any Fox News anchor.
Yep.
How I would describe him at this point.
He's stirring the pot.
Yep.
Hank McCoy, Beast, gets up to drop some knowledge.
Dr. Hank McCoy, because that does come into play later on. A lot of people respect him for being a doctor, but not so much for being big, blue, and hairy.
All right. So Dr. Hank McCoy gets up and he begins to deliver some scientific knowledge about everything that's going on.
Nobody gives a shit about science, so that's accurate in today's world too.
Bishop sees Creed go for his ear thermometer.
It's like a smaller version of his plague gun, I think. Yeah.
Right. And in the middle of these court proceedings, which we don't know like what circuit court this is. We don't know like at what
it's
level.
Presided over by Senator Good.
Can't be bad.
Like this could be Supreme Court. Like you have no idea what's
Probably
going
just
on
appeals,
here.
Court of Appeals.
Yeah, just a traffic
Wait, what
court.
was the Wait, what was the court about? What were they
I have
trying
no
to
fucking clue.
No, what
You
were
have
they
no
trying
idea.
to do?
You don't
I
know.
don't even know. I just like, oh, they're in court.
Wait,
but wait,
wasn't-
what were they trying to?
This
who was
wasn't
on trial.
This wasn't the episode where Beast got caught in the hospital
No.
and arrested, right?
No, that was
a different one.
first season.
Yeah, that's the first one.
They were in
So
court for no reason.
Just because, why not? Is it like a congressional hearing?
No, who knows?
Well, if there's a senator overseeing it, I would imagine
Oh,
it's
yeah,
some sort of congressional
yeah,
hearing.
maybe.
They're like, we really need to suss out this mutant plague. Let's bring a shitload
Yeah,
of
so
mutants in and see what happens.
So we're gonna put together a working
Yeah,
group,
exactly.
and we're gonna come up with a bunch of action items. But in order to do so, we're gonna put an ROI out just so that we get some more information about this mutant plague. So let's bring in somebody who's pro and somebody who's con. Let's get it all together. So they go through this whole thing. Creed goes for his. Creed takes like a step back from the podium. Dr. Hank McCoy steps in front.
Right.
And Bishop sees Creed go for his ear thermometer.
Now Bishop is in full bold primary color costume at this point.
Yeah.
Sticks out like
Just
a sore
harmonica
thumb
music
playing a harmonica.
blaring
Yeah,
in the background.
exactly.
And he jumps into the middle of the courtroom and tackles Creed. Now, this is an important moment in what's happening because it comes in the next beat of this show, it comes into, for almost no reason, Hank or Beast looking at this intensely. The man is standing right there. It's not like Creed is masking anything that he's doing, but it comes. We'll get into it in a second. So they get into this courtroom brawl.
Yeah. And it's sort of like a here we go again because it's the same situation that happened outside of the quarantine. It's the X-Men are trying to squash the situation. Bishop is doing his best to try to prevent it, but he's actually just fucking everything up. So now they all get into a crazy brawl.
But
so
let's be fair, quote unquote brawl, which encompasses people picking up Friends of Humanity and hurling them,
throwing them out a hole in the wall.
Directions.
And she's there calling them Peckerwoods.
Yeah, Rogue.
Throwing them across the room.
Rogue calls them Peckerwoods and Redneck. So she's definitely an instigator.
So the thing that was really surprising, and I don't know if you guys noticed this. So Creed now he gets sprayed with his own virus, and so he is ripping off his clothing in the middle of this court with the
cause the plague
with glowing body circuitry the entire time, and then all the cameras and all the television cameras are on him now, and he's making a huge spectacle, and he drops down to his knees and collapses. And at this moment, you would think that the CDC would show up and just quarantine the whole room. He is passed out on the floor. We have all these FOH guys who have been thrown around the entire room. Yeah. Creed drops, and what happens is two Friends of Humanity guys come over and pick him up. I'd be like, don't fucking touch him. Don't touch him.
And there's just reporters in the back being like, "Ooh, what a scoop!"
Yeah, just
jotting down the story of the century. Could you imagine writing that in a newspaper? Giant blue hairy man testifies in court.
A harmonica played.
Plague is injected into that universe's version of Hitler.
Yeah,
that's
basically
yeah.
Meanwhile, a harmonica playing man tackled the gentleman. It's ridiculous. And yeah, but they just like clear the room.
God.
Like congressional hearing over. I guess we'll reconvene next time.
Let's take a short recess.
Let's discuss what we've learned. So at this point, they follow Creed in his injured state back to his headquarters. And this is where it's revealed that the other guy, his kind of lackey, is actually Apocalypse. So now we get to see him turn into full-on Apocalypse. And we have plenty of his lines to go through. Do you have one that's like right
I do,
now?
because Creed goes, "I am your leader!" And Apocalypse replies with, "You dare to claim dominion over me?" And then proceeds to say, and it's like Creed goes, "A mutant!" And his reply is, I am as far beyond mutants as they are beyond you. And he just continues to say the most awesome things ever, which is Apocalypse's other mutant power.
Being a great orator. Just fantastic speeches.
And what's great is the X-Men have broken into Graydon Creed's mansion
through Cyclops'
Cyclops
tunneling laser.
Tunneling through the floor.
It's like, how are we going to get in here? Oh, let me just open my eyes for a few minutes. We'll just bore straight through here.
Apocalypse continues to beat the shit out of every X-Man involved while still continuing to give speeches about how awesome he is.
He's pretty great.
And how no one can touch him and how he is eternal.
Pretty great. Oh. John, what was your take on this whole thing?
The whole assault on the mansion really, and the fact that we see it again in the next episode. There are a lot of moments where there is a call to action and there is a rally of the X-Men to fight and defend themselves in multiple different ways. What was so disconcerting for me is that nobody communicates with each other about what they all jump into the fray.
Cyclops
and Psyche is a terrible leader. There's no strategy.
You get the point, like where we mentioned where Bishop is outside of the quarantine house. When the Blackbird arrives and Wolverine jumps out of it, he goes, "Don't worry, I'll handle Bishop," and then just jumps down the side of a building and shoots his claws into like everybody is causing property damage, and
you can't.
Nobody's paying attention or listening. Nobody's assisting each other. They're a team, and they don't act like it
Wolverine because he's like, "I'll do what I'm gonna do."
He's the loose cannon.
Yeah. I go where I'm gonna go. Like everything, you can't tell me what to do.
What I wanna do.
He is the like John Locke of the X-Men. He's like, you can't tell me what to do.
Yep.
And you love him. I mean, you have to love him from the show because he's amazing. But he's a pain in the ass, and he causes a lot of the issues, like the same as Bishop does. So at this point now, we're all battling. These guys are all battling Apocalypse. Nothing is working. He's just growing bigger and bigger, and eventually, I think he bursts through
the house.
Which leads one to ask, why didn't he ever just do that before? Because he kills them. Yeah. They die. He shoots them with lasers, and you see their skeletons for like a frame or two. And Cable is watching the whole thing, and he's like, "No,
Tyler."
But no, it's Cable has such a cool line that's like, well, like, you know, we laugh at the episode, but it's a really cool conundrum that he's put into because he says,
I loved it, honestly.
To save my world, I have to help Apocalypse destroy a past one."
No.
And then it goes, to be continued.
And that's the biggest takeaway, I think, just from this first episode. It's all been kind of crazy up until this point, but what happens is in the fight with Apocalypse, they end up destroying the virus. And that sounds good. The problem is that when they destroyed that virus, they, throughout time, after that point, there is not the ability for some mutant, to be infected with that virus, but then generate antibodies so that they can actually survive, and so someone can synthesize and they can make a cure for this plague so that they actually do survive. So by destroying this virus, it's still out there in the world. It'll still wipe people out, and they have no chance of cure.
The problem with that being, Cable's timeline is shit.
Yeah.
There's everybody's dead. Everybody's dead.
I don't. You're hitting the biggest point. Why is he trying to save his timeline? It's garbage.
It's
you live in a garbage timeline.
No one's
asshole.
around. Everyone's dead.
Tyler, like just let him die.
But to his credit, and we don't know this till the end of the second part, he actually, I don't know if he planned this or not, but he actually has a good idea for how this is supposed to work out. So you would think like, okay, we've only got two options. We can either destroy the virus and then the plague still wipes people out and runs mutants to extinction in the future, or we can let the virus happen, kill millions of people, mutants and humans alike, and then there's still some people hanging around in the future, but it's still shit because Apocalypse is a dick and he's ruined everything in the year 4000. So not a great option. And like you guys said, that's where we wrap up part 1 and we jump to part 2. Now, we're not going to go through 100% of the beats of part 2 because most of them are the same as part 1. It's the same timeline, the same events happen. It's just now we've got distant future time traveler Cable in the mix, and he throws a whole crazy wrench into this whole thing.
Oh God, this is the best at being the worst. Is what this is.
I think this is when we see Tyler just straight erased.
Tyler gets erased.
Yeah,
in front of
Tyler
his
gets
Send me
erased
back
now.
there.
Through like
They had a time machine there the entire time.
time machine
He could have
sitting there.
used it whenever he wanted.
It was a fucking just like a portable time machine stowed away in the corner of his garage.
Send me back there.
Tyler, Marty McFly's out of the scene. He just begins to disappear. Like 2 seconds away from Cable's hand reaching out, he just goes poof. And you're like,
He's gone.
Tyler gone. Like, well, I better get my little time kiosk and zip on back to 1995, which he does. And then the very next scene, I think, is a harmonica cue scene, which means that we will be seeing Mr. Bishop.
We are right back where Bishop originally showed up
Popped down
to
to
give
that
that guy
alley.
the Bitcoin.
Get that Bitcoin.
So
but Cable
tosses
shows
it
up
over.
too, because
Right.
Cable has seen through his computer's vision that Bishop is the one that is responsible for fucking everything up. He knows the X-Men are involved, and he's kind of like, I don't know, I don't really want to tussle with the X-Men, but if I can take out Bishop and change his mind, that'll be fine. That's all I have.
Right.
That's essentially what he does. He confronts him. They have one of the most futuristic /
super futuristic.
weird battles.
By the way, do you guys know what Bishop's mutant power is?
Yeah, and he rarely uses it.
He rarely.
Is it harmonica?
It's harmonica in the background. That's how it begins. Bishop has the ability, whenever he's shot with energy, to essentially absorb it and then redirect it, which is why there's that scene in front of the quarantine place where somebody shoots him with a laser gun and he just like pours out the energy into a giant like moat into the street,
a trench in front of humans
to make sure that they don't
That's not gonna
with the
freak 'em
hairy
out.
guy and the lady with wings.
Totally didn't freak him out.
That's not at all.
Just use bullets next time, and there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
So now that we've got future Cable, whose pretty much only weapon is lasers of variety of
the Exorcist cube, and
and
his
metal
mind
arm.
powers
telekinesis
that are referenced once or twice. Like he picks up the gun with his mind at one point.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, he does.
I thought it was like a.
He just
magnetic
hardly
thing or something.
uses it.
So they've had this battle. Bishop escapes. Do either of you remember how Cable tracks Bishop?
He goes into a TV. Is that when he goes into the TV store?
Well, it is, but he tracks him by looking for a particular thing in, I guess, the air.
Temporal energy or something.
He says, maybe he said temporal residue. I wrote down, did he just say track him by oral residue? I heard
it's like mouth spit.
Like mouth spit.
I thought you were gonna say track him by tempura residue, like he was just at like an Asian fusion restaurant, and he just had like tempura on the side.
Because Bishop got back to the timeline and was like, "Oh, I'm pretty early. I got like 35 minutes.
I could kill some sushi right now. Yeah,
I'll just give him like some of my cube coins, and I'll be good. I'll be all set."
I do like at one point that Cable shouts, "This one's for the future," while he's trying to tag Bishop.
Yep.
That's a pretty good one.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Oh, that was actually a great. I thought that was a great line.
You like that?
Not that. No, that line's
okay,
shit.
right.
But no, the line when they're fighting each other and they're blowing out the walls.
Yeah.
And Cable goes, "My future, like I have to save my future," and Bishop goes, "My future is just as important as yours."
Yeah.
You know, in this kind of, and it's funny. It's a very funny way. I mean, if Bishop would shut the fuck up and listen to him
to anybody
for
in these
2
episodes,
seconds, this whole thing would be averted. But
well, I love that Cable's idea of like, I need to talk to this other time traveler from my past, but still a time traveler, and explain to him the situation. His plan to do that is to show up looking crazy and start blasting away with a fucking laser.
It grabs his shoulder.
Yeah, grab his shoulder. It's like, get the fuck off me. Like, I can't imagine that anybody would just like take kindly to Cable showing up and trying to tell him what's what. But maybe that's just me.
Well, Cable is really. Evan, maybe you can explain this to me. At one point, Cable is tracking Bishop, and then we cut to this moment where there's a news reporter standing inside of a phone booth. And this guy in the phone booth is
no explanation.
He's got a big scoop. He's talking to somebody about
great.
something.
Big scoop.
And
A
then
plague.
yeah.
Hank
And
McCoy
then
says different. Friends of humanity are saying that
100% accurate.
Hank McCoy says different. Big scoop.
So at this point, one of the telephones, like maybe 3 stalls down, 3 telephone booths down, the phone just falls off the hook, and then Cable materializes out of the phone?
Yeah.
Yes. So,
can he travel by phone?
So here's so
like
originally
1995 phone line. Yeah.
Originally when
over a 56K modem.
When I saw this, I thought, oh, Cable needs to travel through the phone lines in order to jump into a place that's further away.
Sure.
But then later on in the episode, when he teleports with Wolverine into his hotel room, they don't even jump out of the telephone. They just show up there.
Just right on the bed.
Right on the disgusting hotel room.
There was a lot of body sliding at that point.
They do a lot of body sliding.
A lot of body sliding.
Tell you what, KY slide.
Disgusting hotel room. So dirty.
That was one of the... I literally have a bold statement. Why the fuck did Cable teleport himself and Wolverine to a motel?
I just imagine, did Cable like check into the hotel? He just walked
from the
up.
Future.
One, please. Dun, 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 dun.
Just put his cube down.
Well, this is also the point where he has Wolverine back, and he knocks him out, and he's lying on the bed, and he throws a cup of water on his face. Wolverine wakes up after a cup of water and says, "You trying to drown me?
You cannot please this guy. Everything you do,
are an almost unkillable fucking mutant. That cup of water is gonna do shit.
You cannot do right by this guy.
To be fair, drowning Wolverine is one of the only ways to kill him.
Can you actually drown him?
Is it really?
It doesn't kill him, but it'll make him brain dead, which will essentially, his mutant healing factor will heal his body, but not his mind.
Interesting.
So,
if you ever meet Wolverine, just
throw a cup of water in his face.
Multiple times. So before we even get to the motel, we've revisited these two...
Fucking water. Water's gonna take
Water's the one.
Nothing else.
So falling asleep in the shower could
like a strong thunderstorm. All right, so before we get to this craziness in the motel, we've revisited two of these big fights, right? So we've got the one fight outside of the quarantine zone. That goes pretty much the same as before, except Cable shows up this time and kind of like...
So yeah, it's with their varying degrees of lasers fight with Rogue. And a hologram, and he kicks Rogue through a antenna, and Rogue comes at him with the antenna.
With the antenna, yeah.
And at some point, I thought was so funny, and I mentioned it in my notes, was that the X-Men fucking unload on him. Like, to the point that I've never seen in the show, where Cyclops is blasting him, Gambit's just like using all of the decks of cards that he has, and Storm is going, like, moving her hands up and back and forth like they're machine gun turrets, shooting lightning bolts, and Cable proceeds to say, "I don't need this," and then just teleports away.
Which I don't blame him.
It's a tough situation to be in.
Of all the people they could have unloaded on in the past, like, Cable's the one they choose. This random guy we've never seen before, but he seems shady, so let's light him up. So there's that sort of like rooftop street battle that happens. Cable also shows up again. He like body slides or whatever to the congressional hearing. But rather than fight this time, he kind of waits till Bishop makes his move, and then he just yoinks Wolverine away to this motel. And he now has this plan in mind that he needs Wolverine to make his plan work. We don't know what the hell's going on. We don't know why they're in a motel or what's happening.
Oh, I know why they're in a motel.
Well, it's not shown on daytime television.
X-Men After Dark.
Now let's a brief segue here, because I know we're getting a little short on time. Jean Grey, for like the only thing she does in this entire episode, does like a quick scan of Cable just to like get in his mind and see what's going on. She drops this vague hint to Cyclops that like, this guy's really important to our future. Okay, that's all I got. Like, wait, what? So like Evan mentioned earlier in the episode, obviously Cable is tied into their future, their
never
history,
explained in the show,
right.
Enough. But also,
there's
there's that point where Cable is looking through all the X-Men because he realizes that they're not the wimps that he thought they were.
Right.
And he looks at Cyclops and goes, "I know about Cyclops and Jean Grey," and they just go.
And now you know the rest of the story. So now we've got sort of everybody back. Cable and Wolverine are just hanging out, but everybody follows Creed back to fight Apocalypse. Things pretty much work out the same way here, except for one major difference. When Wolverine does show up, he gets like bathed, I guess one could say drowned, in this vat of mutant virus.
But also, Cable is also there and proceeds to immediately blow a hole through Apocalypse.
That's
without
true.
even saying anything, just blows, "My name is Cable.
Remember it."
He says that like 8 times in the middle of
all right, I got it. Jeez. Cable.
Just settle down. Cable, fine.
Jesus.
Can I get my stationery? I need to write it down.
This down. C-A. How do you spell the rest, mutant?
So at this point now, Cable's been fighting Apocalypse pretty much his entire life, right? So now this is why he's able to show up before Apocalypse is ready for his future and really knock it down. I think Apocalypse just like takes off this time, doesn't he?
Yeah, as opposed to when he
I don't get it. I don't get it.
He could have killed all of them just like he did in the previous one, but for whatever reason,
right?
He makes an energy bubble that whisks him away.
He does like the Magneto thing,
because he can do that as well somehow.
Yeah.
Bishop, when everybody's running, Bishop doesn't take any time at all. He just smashes the thing on his wrist and goes back to his time. And in a really confusing scene, comes back to his time, looks out the window and goes, "Oh shit, nothing's changed.
Harmonica's
It's
playing.
exactly the way I left it." And then he walks up to Forge and goes, "Hey, how's everything going?" "What?" "The plague, how's it going?"
What?
What plague?" I'll tell you about it later. You will so and so. But his future's still shit. It's still terrible.
Pretty shitty.
So it begs the question. My final question for this two-parter.
Your last question. Wow.
Yeah. Was it worth it?
Well, so hold on. So we've got Wolverine has the virus now, right?
Right.
Okay. But as we know with Wolverine, he's got that mutant healing ability. So his body exactly is able to make these antibodies, which Hank just sucked all Wolverine's blood out because that's how science works, and he makes new antibodies that gives the cure for this plague. Everybody's super cool, super chill. Wolverine gets a clean bill of health. Cable goes back to his time. Tyler's totally fine.
But he's still fighting. But he's Tyler. But he's still
fighting. The robot apocalypse is still happening outside.
Still fighting Terminator Genesis.
So it goes to the question: was it worth it? Nothing changed.
It depends on which timeline you're.
Cable's timeline wasn't destroyed,
Cable's
but it's still shitty.
Shitty, but he's got Tylo. Bishop's just like.
Wait, how did you just say
that? He's got
Ty. He's still got Tyler.
Bishop's timeline's still shitty, but for different reasons. Forge has amnesia. Still has Wolverine's skeleton floating in a bubble.
Yeah, nothing can stop Wolverine's skeleton from being inside of that.
It's always gonna happen. It's always gonna happen. Real quick, Evan or Sean, do you have anything else from these episodes before we wrap up? I want to give Evan a chance to do some of these Apocalypse lines as well.
Yeah,
and you too.
The only thing that really kind of was interesting to me to watch this, just in terms of the animation style, was that weird glimmer that's on like the bottom lip of Jean Grey. Her lips are completely bright red, and then there's like a circle.
Oh, she's got like a light burst.
Yeah, she's got like a little light burst.
It's just covering up her cold sore.
That's mutant herpes.
Yeah,
that's mutant herpes.
When you're a mutant and you get herpes, you just have light bursts.
It just shows up. The new power.
I don't know why that. Looking at that, I questioned some of the design, but I was. It's all forgiven.
All good.
What a great show. I just wanted to mention the final thing for this is that Gambit is in this entire episode the whole time.
2 parts. He has 1 line, right?
Both 2 parts, and he has 1 line, which is after Wolverine gets taken. Gambit just goes, "What about Wolverine?" And that's it. And you never.
And just like, all right, see myself
in
out.
the background.
Yeah. See, but in Days of Future Past, he actually has a bigger part because he, spoiler alert, is supposed to be the assassin that kills Senator Kelly. So at one point, like after Bishop has shown up, Gambit, after a night of debauchery and just slamming God knows how many women, just walks in. He's like, No need to fret, Gambit has arrived. And Bishop just straight blasts him like out of nowhere. It's a great scene. Definitely go back and watch that 2-part episode as well. Sean, do you have any Apocalypse lines you want to do before I turn it over to Evan?
No, I want to hear all Evan's.
I think between the two of us, we got a bunch, so we can.
You want to do it?
Let's get into
We
it.
can both do them. Evan's gonna be so much better than
I'll
mine.
be the. I'll start with this one. So yeah, if you guys don't know, just watch these episodes strictly for Apocalypse.
Oh, yeah.
And there's actually some YouTube clips that are like Apocalypse quotes. Check those out. But yeah, Apocalypse says, "You'll only delay the inevitable. I, who am eternal, can never be defeated."
One of his other ones is exterminate the vermin.
Fool! You dare to claim dominion over me? I am as far beyond mutants as they are beyond you.
Another good one is your powers are useless against me. Which you want to do this?
I'll go ahead and do this one.
Okay.
I cannot be harmed. Watch me and tremble. I bring the purity of oblivion. Your world.
That's a good one.
That's my favorite.
And he's
That's
doing
my
that
favorite.
while he's kicking the shit out of the team,
Yeah.
like he's intermittently saying it.
He's just walking around, changing parts,
As
blasting
he turns
people.
his arm into like a big
Piston?
fist that he rams into Rogue into the ceiling.
And meanwhile, he's...
I'll take care of this Peckerwood.
That's Peckerwood. Meanwhile, he's shouting, annoying insects, nothing can stop the apocalypse.
My beautiful virus! The mutant filth have destroyed everything.
Fantastic. We got two more left. You defeated my 4 horsemen once, but now nothing can stop the apocalypse.
So I'll end it with this final one, but also give you guys a nice Apocalypse quote that always stuck with me. The last one he says in this episode is, "I shall not forget this impudence." And there's another one where he says, in another episode where he goes, "I am the rocks of the eternal shore. Crash against me and be broken."
It's so good,
It's
you guys.
it's great.
If X-Men Apocalypse can come even 10% being as good as Apocalypse is a cartoon, I'll be impressed. I'll be amazed.
Oh god.
It's approaching like Mum-Ra status. It's really
Yes. Oh
Ancient
shit.
spirits of
close.
evil.
If he was a little more craggly, I think he'd be. Oh, boy. All right. It is that time of the show where we get to our recommendation. So, Evan, as our very special guest, this is a silly question. Do you recommend that people check out these episodes and the series overall?
Yes, definitely check out these episodes, but this is one of those series where you want to watch it from the beginning to understand what the hell is going on at any given time. Yeah, watch these episodes if you didn't grow up with this stuff. It's great.
Absolutely. Sean, what about you, buddy?
100%. Definitely check this out.
Yeah, we're 3 for 3. I mean, if you grew up in the 90s, it was hard not to know this one. And then, like we mentioned earlier, they're all 5 seasons, 76 episodes, more or less, are on Hulu. So you can check them all out there. That's what I've been doing. I'm about halfway through. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of them because it's probably the last couple seasons I don't really remember all that well. So we'll see where they go. We usually ask at this point whether they should reboot this cartoon. That's kind of silly. There's still comics going on. The movies are still being churned out. There are a ton of other series.
Wolverine and the X-Men, X-Men Evolution, where they're all in high school.
Yeah. A lot of other series there to check out. With Joss Whedon's short.
He wrote. Check out Joss Whedon's X-Men comic book series called Astonishing X-Men.
Yeah, Astonishing
They also
X-Men.
made
They
it
animated
into
that too, but
kind of an animated.
it's
thing.
like almost like a cell animation or something. But pretty. All right.
Very cool.
So now it is our time for plugs and contact information. Mr. Valentine, if you are ready, do you have anything coming up in the next couple of weeks you'd like to let our listeners know about?
Yeah, sure. So check out my articles that I write on Collider.com with Dave.
Nepotism.
Yeah. It's mostly just
insider trading.
I mostly cover Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'll be covering Jessica Jones when it starts coming out.
Nice.
I mostly do a couple
Nice.
of watch Jessica Jones. I saw the premiere in New York at New York Comic Con. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah, it's really good. Also, check out my album. It's on iTunes and Amazon. Evan Valentine, that's what you get for being different. If you are able to be in the Knoxville area, November, it's the...
We can always add it to the site.
Yeah, it's like the November 15th to the 17th. I'll be at the Scruffy City Comedy Festival up there in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I'll be hanging out with a bunch of other funny comedians and everything like that. So it's a good time. It should be a fun time.
And where can the folks find you on Twitter or social media?
Twitter, check me out at EV Comedy on Twitter and Facebook. And that's it.
Awesome. Evan actually does a lot of writing on our site for our more like comic book focused articles too. So like if there's a new character from Doctor Strange movie that's coming up and you're like, who the fuck is Baron Mordo? Then just come look at our page because Evan's got that all taken care of. So Sean, buddy, what about you? What do you got going on? I know you got a laundry list of stuff coming up.
I do. So I'll just do the ones that are going to be the most relevant. I'll just sum them up and say I've got a bunch of shows that are going to be November 20th, December 5th, December 10th, December 19th, December 20th. I do improv with Washington Improv Theater, and we are about to begin this Thursday night or in November. We're going to be doing our seasonal disorder run, and so you can go on witdc.org and you can check it out. I perform with a group called Nox, N-O-X exclamation point. And you can find me on the grams and the ters at Sean Paul Ellis.
Can we just shorten that to like the twigrams or something?
The twigrams? Yeah, we can do that. No, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sean Paul Ellis.
And we will have all of Evan and Sean's dates and contact info up on the website. You can also find me on Twitter at DrClawMD or over at Collider.com. I'll be doing recaps and reviews for Arrow, The Flash, and The Walking Dead. In addition to all of our other, news and stuff we have going on there. If you're interested in finding out more about Saturday morning cartoons, you can do so by checking out our website, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can find us on Twitter at MorningTunes. Check out Sean's handiwork and hopefully his Halloween pictures from when he was cable at like age 11 on our Tumblr page, SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. We got a Facebook page. We got a YouTube account. You can download this podcast each and every week through iTunes and Stitcher. And feel free to send us an email, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com, if you'd like to just let us know how you reacted to the show or to suggest an upcoming episode. Speaking of upcoming episodes, Sean, I believe we have for episode 76, do I have this right? Is it our double episode, our koala-themed, weirdly timed holiday episode?
We have the lovely Allison Keene from Collider, Nepotism, and she will be coming back to the program to talk about two shows that are so intertwined that we couldn't break them apart into separate episodes, so we had to do them together. So it's Noozles and the Adventures of the Little Koala, which is what people want to hear right before Thanksgiving.
Right, exactly. It's koala time Thanksgiving. We're bringing it back.
Yep.
In my weird memory palace, I thought these two shows were almost identical. They literally have one thing in common. Well, two things: Japanese and koalas. That's it. They're really, really different. So if you guys don't remember which one's which,
crazy.
Yeah, definitely come back and check us out.
And also, Cable shows up in both of them.
Yeah, it's really weird. Just
saying that the future is
Tyler.
Temporal storm. There is a temporal storm in Adventures of the Little Koala. It's pretty crazy. So we hope you guys come back and check us out next time on Saturday Morning Cartoons. Thanks for listening.